how nonprofit works, so I can get my whole income from Teach the Future, but my heart is totally with it, so I dedicate my time, my intention to it. So Teach the Future basically was founded 10 years ago. It's already more than 10 years, when Peter Bishop retired for the first time, because now he's retired for a second time. He retired for the first time from the University of Houston, and again, he thought that we need to do something in schools. We need to teach these skills, and we need to start as younger as possible. What else should I say? I always say, for the people that don't know about what's the meaning of including futures in a school, it's just because everyone thinks about the future, but doing it systematically and critically is what makes the difference. So being aware and being conscious that we are thinking about the future and doing it in a critical way, I think this is the key difference. We all plan for our vacations. We all think what we want to do when we grow up. But we need to include this systematization and this criticality into the school curriculum. Understanding the present, exploring possibilities, and having the agency to act on it are the three key pillars that we consider are key. And this can be done in many forms. We are not prescriptive of the Houston model, even though the Future Thinking playbook that Peter developed is based on the framework foresight from University of Houston. This is what a lot of schools are using right now, the Future Thinking playbook. But we are totally open to other ways of including futures in education that are culturally adapted, context adapted. Some schools are using the Futures Literacy Lab from UNESCO. Some schools are using more indigenous practice. For example, in Peru, we have a hub in Peru that is including futures with kids in a school in the Amazonas. And they are doing it their own way, because time for them maybe is not that linear. It's more connected with nature. So when you talk about the future and when you talk about long-term and change, it's a different approach. I am right now co-executive director of Teach the Future with my colleague Lisa Giuliani and Rosa Alegria, because Peter is retiring for a second time. But again, he's still with Teach the Future. He's more focused on developing new educational materials. So he's still working with us, but he doesn't want to be just in the everyday decisions that much. And I'm working as co-executive director, but mainly focusing on the hubs. We have right now around 30 hubs around the world, 30 countries that are including futures into education. I see Kazim from Turkey, and I know Steven wants to make a revolution in Africa with Teach the Future. And Yelena from Kazakhstan, she's part of Teach the Future as well. So I see some of the hubs here. And I think I will stop talking for a moment and maybe open the floor to questions and comments. One last thing. Our experience for 10 years has been that it is easier to include futures outside the schools, libraries, community centers, summer schools, or private schools, because they are more open to innovate with the curriculum. The real challenge has been public schools and ministries of education. So I would like to open here the opportunity. If you would like to do research, if you are connected with a university, we need data that shows that when kids learn to think about the future in a systematic way, they are more prepared, they are more equipped, they have less anxiety about the future, they are more hopeful about the future. So all these aspects that we know because of our experience, but we don't know, we don't have the scientific data. So I wanted to share this with you. If you have any idea or you have opportunities to do research in this area, we will really thank that. And with that, I will stop. I see almost 30 hubs. Who has benefited most? Can you clarify what do you mean by benefit?
Yeah, not financially, but or another way to think of it is who do you see that really needs this the most, or is like a most appropriate place to apply teach the future approaches or settings.
I don't have an answer for that because I could say that the 30 countries have different approaches to it. Some of them are including futures directly in teachers training in the university. So for the teachers to be, they can start learning about futures thinking. Some of them are doing teacher training while already the teachers are in the schools. Some of them focusing on early childhood, some of them. So I don't know who can benefit the most. I would think that this benefits everyone. Kazim from Turkey helped implemented future thinking as a mandatory school curriculum for more than 4 years already in some schools in Istanbul. So I can say, and he can maybe share on that teachers and students are benefiting from it.
Shall I?
Yeah, sure.
All right, thank you. Well, first of all, it's a great gathering here. I see there's about 30 participants, and Teach the Future is always exciting us. And I also see other friends like Elena and Bashir and some other guys. Good to see you here. Now, coming back to the subject, to the question of Amos. Now, what we have done is a program that we started first training the teachers. That was the first key move because of two reasons. First, we don't have the authority or the contact with the kids, so we don't have the formation. We're not high school K-12 teachers, so that's not our job. But we thought that when we train the teachers as adults, peer-to-peer, and that is what we do. And we start with so-called the future studies. And you can see on the upper corner here is the logo of the Gelecek Bilgisi Futures Studies in Turkish. That's a whole project. So we worked them the whole semester. One thing most important was the teachers were volunteers. They are not appointed by the school. So they had to be volunteering to take part in this project. It worked well. It was a difficult job because just like any other in your normal practice, adults, they're not ready for that. They never thought about it. And the future awareness is somewhere at the bottom. But that worked well. And also we made this calculation, like this industrial calculation. When we start with the teachers, and each teacher can reach out, and at least each one, every semester, every year, more students. So we started with five teachers in 4 years. They're all together 14 teachers now at the same school. We started with the 6th graders. Now, first year, 6th grade, then next year they became 7th, new 6th graders. And the other year, then grade 8, 7, 6. Now we have 4 years, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, like all mid-school. Now they are really, the kids are amazing. They're like sponges, sponge to Bob. And they are sucking everything what you can give them. And the teachers become more and more competent and get confidence in their competencies, lessons. And Lourdes mentioned one very critical word. This is not an elective lesson. This is a compulsory lesson. So we were able to, we were able to convince and discuss and talk about it with the school. And they said they would love to. Now, as a consequence, the parents started getting also involved in the whole subject because the kids started to talk about it when they go back to home. And the parents came to the school principals and say, well, they're talking about something different. We don't understand what's going on in the school. So we got their attention. Now it's a very new development in our system is that now we're going to start with the accreditation of such schools as future schools. So they're going to be there. The pilot project is now in the 5th year. So we have the whole accreditation program internationally. It's going to connect it to the federation, in Oslo. And this is going to, we hope that we will spread this out within the whole Teach the Future global system, which is like more than 20 countries now with all the hubs. But long story short, the kids are very happy. The kids are now totally aware about the future, about their potential career. They have the say about their own future against their parents. They can sit down and discuss with them. Can go long, but
Thank you. Thank you, Kazim. Thank you so much. It's good to have real experiences shared here. So thank you for that, Kazim. I am following this chat. And thank you, Stephen, for reminding me that we have coming the World Future Day, Young Voices, the 1st of March. This was started by the Millennium Project more than 10 years ago, and we are in our 5th year. Our World Future Day is 24 hours conversations around the world, youth-led and intergenerational. So we want the kids, the youth, to set the agenda, to design the session, but then we have this intergenerational conversation because we think it's important to mix. It's not all about the youth. We need to live in a world where different ages are going to live together. So this intergenerational aspect for us is really important. I will leave an email here of my colleague Lisa. If you would like to host a session in the World Future Day or to learn more about it, she can give you more information. Let me follow the chat. How many people work for the organization globally? How do you approach the public education system? And how do you end up delivering in the class? So regarding the global team, we are around 10 people that work mainly in a volunteer basis. This is what it is, but we have been doing for a while, and we are aiming to do it for a while as well. This 2025, we are diversifying our ways of being a sustainable organization because we have never done that in the past. Peter was the one that with his work, he was financing the organization. He is a world leader, doing speeches, training here and there, and he was financing the organization. He didn't need to think about that before. But now we are launching this 2025, we are launching online courses for teachers and for educators. We have a team that is looking for grants and for donors. So this is how we work from the global team. How we approach the public education, we are going to more events that are from the education perspective, not that much futures angle, because in the past, everyone in the futures field, I will say, knows about the future, but no one from the educational side. Not no one, but less people from the educational side. So for example, this year in March, we are going to be in the South by Southwest Edu conference, representing Teach the Future, speaking about our work. So this is a big scale step as well. How do you end up delivering in the class? So as I said, it depends on the country. But for example, in Dubai, as Kazim was saying, a youth that is connected with Teach the Future somehow started a Futures Club in his school. And it was so successful that now the school, the director of the school, wants to include futures in their schools because of one student that started a Futures Club, started discussing topics about the future with his classmates, and then teachers got the attention, then the director of the school got the attention, and now they are talking with us to include futures in the curriculum. In Greece, for example, we are talking more in the public sphere, like more government decision-making sphere. So it's depend. It can come from a student or it can come from the Ministry of Education. Diversity of approaches. Yelena, the question about the research, centralized or we do it in our own. I think what we need is universities and resources to invest the time in doing the research, but our team in Teach the Future doesn't have an interest on doing the research. So we are opening the floor for you to do the research. We have the data, we have the schools, we have the kids, we have the parents, we have the teachers. We have the Futures Consciousness Scale Young Voices developed by Finland, the University of Turku. And we developed with them, we co-developed the youngsters version of this Futures Consciousness Scale. So we have some tools to measure before and after intervention, for example, that will make it easier to have data. So we are happy to share with you the resources that we have. And if you are connected with a university, this will be great. Faisan Abbasi, I'm more of a network weaver instead of direct research. Okay, so please reach out. Happy to think about new ways of collaborating. And yes, Cici, if you want to start a hub in your country, this is country by country, please reach out. If there is already a hub, we will happily put you in contact with the colleagues that are doing the work. We want the hubs to be open ecosystems. So not tied directly to one organization, but that it can be open and for people to collaborate. So yes. Preconceived notions were challenged during the journey of Teach the Future. How did you integrate the new context and what were the struggles during it? One big precognition or preconception, or I will say it was an unknown, or something that we just weren't paying attention enough, is that for a while we were all adults in the organization. So we didn't have any young voices actually with us, helping us more in connection with their needs and with their context. So last year we started the Young Voices Council. It's a group of 20 kids, 20, 30 kids from around the world, every one of them with less than 18 years old. And they have been training themselves in future thinking, but they are also being a council for Teach the Future. They are giving us advice on how they think Teach the Future should work in the decision that we want to make. They have a voice. So including young voices has been a big discovery for us, something that seems obvious. And with the UN objectives, with the Summit of the Future of meaningful youth participation, or including young voices in a more meaningful way, we think that we need to set the example for that, and also for the kids and the students to have a voice and to meaningfully engage. They need to be ready and equipped. If not, it's going to be the same 10 kids that are going to the UN, to the European Union, and these institutions. They are the same kids always. If we want a scalable way of engaging youth in decision-making processes, the most scalable way is the classroom. We need to prepare kids to think systematically and critically about the future. Okay, I see Stephen. He's based in Nairobi, and he's explaining his background, and he's also working closely with Lisa, with the youth, and with the World Future Day as well. I see, CC, that you are already teaching futures in the university level. Yes, Josh, I'm so happy to see you here. Open the mic.
Hello, everyone, and good morning from Paris. I'm Josh Polcher. I work at the OECD, and I recently joined a new team where I'm leading work on new perspectives on childhood. We just baptized the project with that name yesterday, so it's very fresh, and we're exploring new ideas. And I'm really delighted to be able to connect with Lourdes and this fantastic work on Teach the Future. I knew about it already, and it's wonderful to be able to amplify it a bit with the OECD's loudspeaker. My question to you, Lourdes, is can you tell us some stories? Tell us about one of your best experiences with Teach the Future. Maybe tell us about a difficult time you overcame, or just something else that was kind of, yeah, like one of your real world experiences that was maybe challenging or a bit exciting or even spicy somehow.
Thank you, Joshua. And it's so important that institutions like the OECD give us a voice to share our experience, to share our data, because it's not that well known yet. Thank you for that. And I will continue with the chats once I answer Josh. I think one of my best experiences was in Sevilla, in my hometown, working with a school there. I gave 10 classes, future thinking, 10 classes. And I thought that kids will have an amazing imagination, that when I asked them, think about what's the future, they will have a lot of diverse images of the future. What I've discovered is that they are really influenced by science fictions and mainstream media. So most of them, I'm saying more than 80% of them, imagined flying cars in their 30 years from now. The question was, how is your life like if you travel right now in a time machine and you go 30 years from now in Sevilla? What do you see? What do you see around you? How is your life? Describe what do you see? They needed to do the drawings. So everything flying cars, it was a private school. So most of them were successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, with secretaries, female robot secretaries. So I was really surprised of these limited and similar images of the future. And the way I structure, so this has a happy ending, okay? The way I structure the learning experience was I want to test the baseline. I want to know what are their images of the future without knowing anything about future thinking skills. So this was the first step. The good news is through the process of understanding trends, reflecting about unintended consequences, exploring possibilities about the future, learning about different images of the future that are out there, indigenous images of the future, black futurism, solar punk, other images of the future, and then working with the scenarios and clay. They were able at the end to have really rich images and ideas about opportunities and new challenges of the future. So for me, it was clear that even though the baseline, even though their images of the future were really influenced by the mainstream media, just with 9 classes of 45 minutes, their entire perspective on how they think about the future changed. And this was really impactful for me on how, with little effort, you can make a really great impact in a student life and how they see the world after that. So this, I will say, it was a really great experience for me, Josh. Let's see, Jem. Yes, so let's talk about that. I will love to discuss more about the opportunities in the universities that you are connected. Salman, yes, in Pakistan, we have our colleague Umar. Salman, let's connect again and see how we can partner with Teach the Future.
Yeah,
the future.
sure.
Yeah, Salman, yes. Let's send me a message.
Thank you, and good to see you and all of you. Yeah, I'm open how we can connect with Umar and then can work with you guys. And one more thing, how can we collaborate with you on your online courses? As we discussed earlier too, that I'm interested because I'm teaching in a university and we have more than 20,000 graduates from this Introduction to Future Studies and Foresight course. And we have a number of ages, people from different ages, they do undergrad, like people from 16 to onwards. So we do have some experience with high school teachers too, and now I'm reaching out to different private sector schools in my city, Karachi, where I want to connect with them, and they desperately need something, like they need few courses, international collaborations, and it would be great if we can collaborate, and then we can offer the short courses or for training for their teachers. That's what
Yeah.
I'm looking for.
Okay, Salma. So right now we are doing one by one, but we are launching next month independent lessons. So it's 12 lessons, but it can be included independently in different classes. You don't need to have a futures classes. You can include in your sustainability class or in your history class to think about, are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future? What does this mean? So independent lessons that can be implemented here and there. This will be launched for teachers next month. It will be open and online. This is what we want. We want to scale a little bit and not to do school by school, country by country. So we will have this soon. So this is independent lessons, but also we are launching in spring a school year curriculum that is really easy to use by teachers that don't know about futures thinking, with everything, the playbook, the facilitator guide, like trying to make it as easy as possible for government officials if they want to include it in the public education, but also for schools or networks of schools. So you will hear about us. And the future consciousness scale is available, but we didn't have the staff to manage it, and we are launching it in February as well. So you can use it, but if you want the feedback on the data, we need more staff to work on that, and this is why we didn't like openly launch it yet, but it's available, and in February it will be ready to use. Thank you for the question. And what can you think? Josh, they are asking for a link on your work. I saw the publications in LinkedIn. Josh is really active in LinkedIn, so please reach out to him. Fazan, science fiction and mainstream media potentially becomes the self-fulfilling prophecies. And we talk about that in the classes. The importance of the images that we already have. And we are going like in an automate pilot to these images without questioning them. And the importance of creating new images and intentionally work towards these more hopeful visions of the future. So yes, science fiction is there. We can extract opportunities and challenges for these visions of the future, but the great deal is to create new ones. Yes, Josh.
I'm going to do a shameless plug then, since you asked for it, putting the link in the chat to our latest 2-pager. Lourdes and I actually met in Paris a couple of days ago, and we're discussing this format. And I think it would be fantastic to do one about futures consciousness in children. So calling all participants in this event, if you agree that that would be a great idea, then show a round of applause for Lourdes to work with us on producing one.
Thank you, Josh. I was complimenting Josh because having a 2 pages with key information is not that common. Sometimes we have the big report, 60 pages. Nobody's going to read that. Let's have the 2 pages, and then if you want more information, you can go to the report. But communication assets are important to communicate the great work that we are all doing. Amos, I see that you are mentioning that there are many future thinking tools out there to engage youth. In Teach the Future, we have the open library of resources. The challenge is that when a teacher or a school goes to the library or goes to these resources, they don't know where to start. They want really like to say step by step. What do I say? How do I set the classroom? Like it's really because they don't have the time and they are already overwhelmed teachers. So we need to make it, there are a bunch of toolkits I was talking with Josh about that. There are a bunch of toolkits, but we need to really think from a user perspective, the journey of the teacher when they are using these tools. It's not adapted to them yet. And I see Josh commenting there. And Disco School, Sara. Sara, I'm working with Sara. Sara, maybe you can explain your amazing work with kids. It's not directly connected with Teach the Future, but she's in parallel from 2016 or 17 doing amazing work with futures and youth.
Thanks a lot, Lourdes. So my name is Sara Bozanic. I lead Institute for Transmedia Design, and together with Dr. Ivica Mitrovic from Split University, we started to really engage early in speculative design. Somehow it led me that at the time in 2016 and then 2019, there was not much initiatives for children. And I try to understand like what is it that drive the innovation, imagination, and the future thinking. And definitely it was to support them in their dreams, in creativity and imagination. And this is how the Disco School started. It was the project that was heavily developed and then delivered in the time of COVID, where actually more or less children were abandoned. So we invited the first school. It started really locally and small. So together with colleagues from Goldsmith, Jimmy Loiseau, and Matt Ward, we developed a strategy and a methodology on how to work with children in time of COVID. Started with a small school in Slovenia, in reimagining the vision of a city that is completely stigmatized and that lost its power due to the industrialization. Later on, the project evolved. It had more than 1,000 children engaged from Vienna, Chile, and we engaged also with 5 schools in France. So whatever we did is they would tackle different perspectives on reimagining the future of cities. Some children would approach it from the emotional level, the other from the architecture, the third one from the policy level. But whatever it was, we always made a big exhibition out of their future scenarios and presented to the public either in Le Corbusier Center in France through Vienna Design Week platform, so they could see the value of their work and connect again. At the moment, this initiative is further developed together with Lourdes, and we are in a search for new partners. Because what we do is also either go on our own and teach children and also train the trainers. So when we leave, they can do and use the methodology, which is super simple on their own. So yeah, thank you. If any questions, more than happy to answer. And thank you, Lourdes, for
Thank you, Sara.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sara. For us, it's so important to do these network connections. And I see a question there. How do you spread the word to educators, teachers? There are already other people doing futures with youth. Maybe not that many doing futures in a school, but futures with youth. For example, UNICEF or SWAF, they are also doing futures. So for us, it's really important to partner, to not reinvent the wheel, not starting from zero. And our main aim, we have a mission that it's every student is prepared to navigate an uncertain world and have an agency to act on it. So if there are partners out there that are doing similar things, we are more than happy to find ways of collaborating. We don't want to be the only ones doing it. We are in a mission together. So I wanted to say that. How do you spread the word to educators, teachers? We are on it. We are trying to be more in their conference and in their spaces. It hasn't been easy. Yes, translating the tools. This is something that we are doing. So the Futures Thinking Playbook is already translated in more than 11 languages. The hubs are doing it. So this is an amazing way of spreading futures into different countries. And World Future Day, your session or sessions can be in different languages. We are not saying that English needs to be mandatory. Brazil always does it in Portuguese. So we have many ways of tackling this diversity And we want youth to express themselves in their own languages. One key issue with that is we will love in the World Future Day, this 24-hour conversation, to have an AI to translate in real time. This would be great. So also opening a call here, if you want a company or someone that would like to donate some money so we can pay for the software, or if you know a company that is actually doing this live translation on a good live translation, we will be happy to learn about that. Okay, I see Steven sharing resources and Josh. Yes, we need the AI to guide us from that. Maybe you can, yeah, we are almost going to the final. Maybe you can open the mic if you have a question instead of, mi padre está aquí, my father is here. Papi. Thank you for joining. So if you, any of you want to open the mic instead of using the chat, maybe some comments. It was wonderful sharing the space with you. I hope I didn't talk too much. I want also to hear from you.
Hey, Lourdes, just real
Yes.
quick. One of the things that we're finding is we many of us are all on board with participatory futures and then working then with youth. But what we're finding is that if youth are coming from, say, violent, traumatized sort of backgrounds, they actually can't think about the future. And so it's almost like they have to do some pre-work, which we call reconciling the past and re-engaging the present. But neuroplasticity in the brain, 12-week, 6-month programs can actually release them. And it's almost like you unshackle. It's the Plato's allegory of the cave. Someone who's been stuck in this, dark sort of space comes out of it, and they're like, why hasn't anyone ever told us any of this before? And then they're all of a sudden, it's like, we want to change the world. And it's like their spectrum of resilience of where they've come from and where they've gone, is immense. So I think empowering specifically marginalized sort of communities, and it doesn't even have to be youth, it can be, anyone in a marginalized sort of space, but violence, conflict, it just shuts the brain down, because now you're thinking, I need to survive one day, 1 week, 1 month. And when you kind of free them from some of those constraints, these youth that I'm working with are on fire. And so it's now I'm trying to engage more formal sort of foresight in those sort of spaces, but it needs to also come from the history of what they've experienced and so forth. So that's kind of the curriculum design and so forth that I'm playing around with here. So just emphasizing the importance of those marginalized, communities.
Thank you so much. There are so many things that I wanted to share, and this was one of those. We have experienced two things. First, what he just shared, if you don't have guaranteed your present, it's really difficult to think about the future. It's a privilege to think about the future. If you live in a context that has violence or that are really climate change, whatever, it's impossible. So giving them the skills and the tool to also acknowledge their context and their situation, and then talking and thinking and reflecting about futures and the agency and what can be done and what can't be done. This is also important. What is beyond our control. This is also a key issue. But acknowledging the psychological aspect and the safety that they need to have in the present. Thank you for that. And the second thing that I have experienced is we need to have sensitivity when we work with scenarios with children, but also with adults, with adults in education. Sometimes someone that is thinking about a future, maybe it's a dystopic future, and they're thinking about climate change, and suddenly they are really sad. They are really sad, and some of them may cry because maybe they have a difficult situation or whatever. So if we are not prepared as facilitators to deal with these emotions, with this caring of this emotion, giving the space, but also being aware that this could happen and knowing how to handle, especially with young kids, I think is super critical. So we always said when we train the trainers, that this needs to be people that know how to work with children and know how to work with kids in a psychological and emotional level. It's not everyone that is working with professionals and CEOs can suddenly go to a classroom. And this is something that it's important to acknowledge. Thank you very much, Stephen, for that. Thank you. Anything else?
Well, Lourdes, let me just expand on that to be a little bit more radical in the sense that there's a lot of work now being done in the quantum social theory sort of space. So using quantum mechanics to look at what they're calling dynamic, it's DEMM, dynamic embedded memory mapping. So this is like looking historically at how the history of nations experience different things and the dominant narrative that in many ways gets things trapped in the circulation of used futures by marginalizing those communities that have not taken part in the history and the nation building. And so it's going back and mapping that and then unlocking that to see how you can empower more and more communities to be engaged with the future of the countries. Because currently it's an elite domination. The United States is a perfect example of how an elite billionaire club has kind of captured this and is actively going to try to marginalize anyone else who wants to challenge the narrative they're saying of how the country needs to go forward. So this is, I feel like my area is big, but the people that I work with that research this area, this deals with 8 billion people, and then it kind of becomes lost in the fuzz of all of that. But there's so much potential to do more work in this area.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I am also exploring embodiment in the futures processes, so not that much rational processing or rational ways of knowing. This weekend I was in Paris doing a course, like as a student. It was called Crafting Pedagogies for Togetherness. And it was about social presence in theater, that it comes from the theory U. And it's basically learning to be aware of the senses or the feelings in our body. And I think it's critical to include this in the processes of doing futures or teaching about the future, because if everything is here, everything is rational, we are forgetting about how do we feel when we think about certain images of the future, the agency that gives us these images. So being aware of how we feel, including movement. Not everybody is sitting in a classroom. Students like to move. So how can we explore trends, the scenarios, images of the future, moving in the classroom? So this is something that we want to explore more in the future. If anyone here is interested in that, happy to chat.
Well, I think that was quite a lot of interaction. Bazaar, do you have any questions for our speaker? Yes, I saw his hand.
Hello, everyone. And actually, as a troublemaker student, I never would have envisaged becoming a trainer myself, because it was always privileged for the very, very hardworking and the most knowledgeable. But through improv, curiosity, and challenging the system, really digging through information, you're able to develop yourself. Now, Ilyas brought a wonderful point of institutionalization, that the institutional structures that would always resist. And not only institutions resisting, here in Turkey, every decade we would have a complete revamp of the educational system, claiming that, that everything will be solved, that there would be any need for change. So I don't know the case for other countries. So there is a desire for transformation, but then what is preventing that transformation from taking place? And how can we contribute to that transformation? Thank you very much for this.
Thank you. I have included some links of my research.